of the reasons why we're here is to achieve one of the themes that George talked about, that is the external links. We are the external links. Earlier on in this program, we end training for the principals. We have also had an extensive training for teachers in secondary schools. They just concluded their online class last night. So we are here as the external links to support inclusive education, to support the school systems, to support the teachers as they implement what they have learned. And we need now to shift from being more inclusive in primary schools and now target the secondary schools, because I think that is where we have the big gap. So George,
we should involve all the stakeholders. Third, we should restructure the cultures, the policies, the practices in school to respond to the diversity of peoples within their locality. Fourth, we should provide providing an accessible curriculum and appropriate training programs for all, that is teachers as well as the learners. Last but not least, identify and providing support for staff as well as students. What is the role of a teacher in the implementation of a successive IE? One, interaction with the family. So we should incorporate the family in any undertaking that we are taking to be able to solve their problem, to develop a new learning strategies. Learning is a process, so we should involve different strategies. Be able to develop self-confidence in all learners. Be able to provide special facilities to cater for the individual difference. Be able to look after their personal needs. Be able to recognize their hidden talents. Each child has a talent. And to inculcate positive attitude in the able-bodied children. And there's a quote there. If I don't learn the way you teach, then teach the way I learn. 5 W's of inclusion. And these 5 W's refers to why, who, what, where, when for inclusion. The first W refers to why. Why is the starting point? The word why will refer to the starting point. Why are we doing that? That is where the starting point. That's where we should start. Who your child is matters, despite the challenges that child may encounter, with or without disability. Therefore, who your child is matters. What we believe is, what we believe is true becomes true. Whatever you believe is true, definitely to become true. Where we get our information matters. Remember, in terms of disabilities and special needs, we have a lot of needs. All what we need is facts, and therefore, where we get the information, this matters a lot. Last but not least is when. When students do self-advocate, it is a win, and a win-win for all of us. So what are the benefits of inclusive education? The following could be benefits of inclusive education. The first one, it may not be very clear, but I'll read. The first one, all children have equal access to education. The first one, all children have equal access to education. Inclusive education focuses on the child abilities, not on disabilities. That children become accepted by one another as they play. Those with and without disability or special needs, they interact, they make friendship, and therefore children, they are embraced by each other. The next one, meaningful relationship develop between students as they spend time with one another. So there is meaningful relationship, friendship among themselves. Next one, students develop confidence in their ability to interact with the world around them, because now they are open to the world around them. Teachers are highly trained at delivering a differentiated curriculum to meet individual needs. There is the teacher's training aspect of it. The next one, students develop a positive attitude and appropriate support in the classroom. Because they are interacting in the classroom, they develop appropriate attitude and they cooperate with each other. Second last, various resources and technologies are used for differentiated learning style. Last but not least, everyone is valued and participates to the best of their ability, and therefore they achieve their potentials. However, having said that, everything is not smooth. We may encounter challenges. The same case happens too in inclusive education. It encounters challenges and encounters a lot of challenges. The following are challenges. The first one, it may include, yes, the first one, we have attitudes, individual, the attitude that we have towards each other, towards those with special needs and disabilities. Physical barriers. How is our environment? Is it conducive? Is it friendly? Is it welcoming? Curriculum. How conducive is it? How does it cater for differentiated learning and our talents and our pace of learning, amongst others? Language and communication may also be a barrier. Socioeconomic factors. We are blessed differently. Remember, some of the equipment that may be needed for inclusive education may be a little bit expensive. But depending on where these schools are, socioeconomic factors may hinder the progress. Funding. How often is it? Is it sufficient? Does it come when it is needed? Is it always available? Is it enough? Policy as barriers. Do we have policies in place that support inclusive education, that support the process? However, we should note, despite all this, attitude is the greatest barrier to inclusive education, and therefore the way forward for inclusive education. The way forward on inclusive education is, it starts with I, we, and all of us having the right attitude. Next. Otherwise, thank you so much.
Thank you, George, for the wonderful presentation. One thing that I totally agree with borders on attitude. Attitude is a very big factor, because you realize that if the school is not ready, the leadership is not ready, the teachers are not ready, and also parents are not of the right attitude to support their learners in inclusive settings, then there's a problem. Because this is something that I've observed from a very practical experience. So far, we are working with 25 schools in the Lake region around inclusive education at secondary school level. So, and what we actually encounter so much is around attitude from the parents, from the teachers, and from the leadership of the school. And I hope if this is addressed, then we'll be at a better place than we are at today. Thank you very much.
Karibu sana.
Yeah, thank you, Maura. Thank you for your wonderful presentation. I've learned quite a bit this morning on inclusive education and some of the benefits and barriers that, from your perspective, children with disabilities encounter in their learning. Just a small addition on your analysis of barriers for inclusive education, which personally as a programmer I consider very key, because someone here has talked about a statistic of 500 children or thereabout in secondary schools. I don't know what we have as the statistics for primary level. I consider this as a barrier because if we do not have up-to-date and appropriate data for children with disabilities, then it becomes very difficult to plan for them. And I'm wondering in this sitting how we can strengthen that as the key actors in this environment to assist us in planning and even in supporting learners with disabilities. Thank you very much.
Paper you gave us. I want to talk about the resources we use in the schools, especially learning and teaching aids. For people who are disabled or have special needs, they need something a bit adapted for their needs, because we have different learning needs. And that is why when Madam Kakuo mentioned leaving primary to secondary, it is a problem, because we know in Kenya you have to pass, and if you did not have adequate material for you to grasp what is being taught and then do well in the exams is also a problem. So I believe that more resources in terms of what students or pupils use for learning, and also training the teachers so that they understand what it means. Because if you use lecture method, it really does not add value. And the bottom, you'll find the students lagging behind, and they need to be taught about IEP so that they are able to do to improve and their weaknesses. So inclusive to work, we have to think about our teaching strategies, and materials are key in my view. Thank you.
We are talking about inclusive education. After we discuss and review everything in this, should we come up with a policy, or we are just talking and coming up with it? And my question is, inclusive education, we want to implement it. After we do the research or before we do the research? Which is the best way out? Are we supposed to do the research, or we are going just to implement it before we do the research? So I think we should do the research, what is going on now, then we see what the way forward. We are talking about attitude also. It is true. I believe we have to discuss about the attitude with the parents and also the people who are focusing with these people with disability, so that it can be easy for us to implement these policies. We are talking about the staff, the children with special needs, the community. So we should sensitize them so that they can be aware and they support these groups. Thank you.
Rahab, thank you very much, Rahab, for that insightful contribution. May I request Maura just to react to the other comments? She mentioned something about carrying or conducting research before we continue even with the implementation plan for inclusive education in secondary schools. Yes, we did a baseline survey before we started this project, and we will be sharing the report probably when the report is out, we will be sharing with this forum as well. So yes, we did the research, and we have findings from secondary schools. Judge, now I think I can give you a...
I may not have a correct answer. I'm just giving an expression about the policy, but I hope we have a policy in place. However, what we may need so much, I'm not very sure, we need a lot of advocacy and a lot of lobbying so that the readers may know exactly what we are after. You may not know how people with disabilities feel, not unless you experience. I would like to give an experience, my own experience back in campus. I'm a sports person and I was playing soccer and I ruptured my Achilles tendon. Achilles tendon is the strongest tendon in your body, just behind the heel. And for several months, I was on two crutches. Luckily enough, the university offered me the tuk-tuk services. And if the tuk-tuk service didn't come, you remember from one lecture to the next, using two crutches. I would spend 2 hours. When reaching there, the class is already finished. I remember on one Saturday, we used to stay somewhere, was Kamukuji somewhere. People used to stay out and discuss issues, topical issues, politics, and the rest. But wherever they were, because I was using the crutches, it was a little bit inclined. I could not reach where they were. But I could hear the discussion. So I opted to sit somewhere within the distance. I could hear their discussion. Then a certain man came. He was looking for his friend. He came from out. And this friend of his was on wheelchair. And therefore he went to my friend and asked, where is so and so? Remember, we are all colleagues and we know each other. They pointed at me. Go and ask him. Whatever went in my mind was, birds of the same feathers. Because I'm on crutches, I should know where this guy on wheelchair is. And remember, they are friends as well as myself. Anyway, for some days, it could not come up of my mind. However, mine was not permanent. Then I asked myself, if it was permanent, this is how people with disabilities live. You see? Therefore, attitude, whatever is, we need to rethink and have the right attitude. With the policy, we need to do a lot of
policy when it comes to even marking. Let's be looked into, because at the moment we are having even challenge. They have done just the exam, but
Madam Kaguo for the presentation.
They're able to access it. Moreover, I happen to represent this in one of the forums where you two are represented, and one of the persons with hearing impairment reiterated one fact that sign language ought not to be a second language. Okay, her concern was the fact that you and I had to learn our mother tongue languages first, and then using those mother tongue languages, that is how we were able to be taught English, Swahili, French, Spanish, and whatsoever language. And that's also how we ended up learning other things like science, biology, all other subjects that we now have. So she reiterated the fact that it would be best if they learn, first of all, their sign language, and then use that sign language of theirs to now be introduced to other concepts. With that, they will easily interpret, because she reiterated that they learn by first of all seeing, then signing, and then they get to writing, and then reading. Unlike us, who do almost the opposite. So maybe you can consider the same and help us push to have the Marrakesh Treaty and also the exams signed for those people with hearing impairment. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. That is IT good, and you will always talk IT. So thank you very much. The next person is Solomon. Solomon Buhala, Karibu.
I want to appreciate Madam Kapo for the presentation she has made about the sector, sector plan, and we are seeing at least many things that have been included, in fact, that have been left out in the previous policy. I just want to say that at least it is a progressive policy that we should not forget that children with disabilities, their life begins after they've been identified, even before they are placed in school. That is a very key aspect of home-based programs that need to be so much considered because once a child has been identified at an early stage, you'll find that that child can in fact progress and later be admitted in a school. I also want to say that parents for children with disabilities have a lot of challenges, and as they are also supported, at least with support groups, it should be part of the implementation. That at least though partners are coming in to help parents to make support groups and support one another and encourage one another and at least cope with the learners with disabilities, there is that need to really focus more on when it comes to parent association. It's good also to know that there are parents with children with disabilities. There is also an issue of support staff, whereby there are those who are, transcribers, for instance. There are those who are sign language interpreters. Now, my issue is when it comes to Braille transcribers. When you go to a primary school, you find that there's a Braille transcriber, and then he may transit and maybe be hired by a secondary school without much knowledge and a lot of, and of course, remembering that this person might be maybe having a D in his Form 4, then he's in secondary, he's transcribing notes and many other things for students who are supposed to get A's. Then for a while you find the same transcriber goes to the university, with the same D without any advancement. He's transcribing a lot of things, material for graduate students. I think this is an area that is very great, that to me, I feel that there is need to think about it. I think we have done some strategic paper proposal to the ministry. I hope that the ministry will look at it and maybe invite stakeholders and see what they can do so that we can have some of the, like currently we have a diploma curriculum at KICD that nobody has ever implemented for Braille transcribers. Even KISA has never taken that one and implemented it. So you see, it's good to have certificate, Braille transcribers, diploma, Braille transcribers. We even encourage universities to have Braille transcription as an area that somebody can go and get a degree, so that we can have people working at all levels. And that one will help our students to pass. Because if you are still using that one who got a D in primary, in secondary, you can see what you are encouraging is people just to fail. So I just want to observe that.
Yeah, that's a great observation. I think we have noted. Then we need to react after everybody has talked. Next was Josephine. Josephine here. And then after Josephine, we go to Trufena, and then Grace.
Okay. Thank you very much. That was a great presentation by Madam Kapun. And I just want to share just a little observation that I made, that this policy is taking into cognizance the CBC. And I think the vision of the vision of CBC is nurturing every learner's potential. And I was telling myself that if we are going to use this vision, then and of course I want also to imagine that now the policy has taken that into consideration. My concern now is that as we are nurturing this learner's potential, then we want to take seriously the gifts that each learner has. But then on the other hand, I realize that this policy has just acknowledged the gifted and talented. And I'm asking myself then, which policy, maybe I need clarification on how then is the gifted and talented area protected by the policy. One of the things that came up when at one point we were discussing the scope of teacher training for CBC is that this area again had issues. It was we really had to debate on whether this area, together with the learning disabilities, would be taken as an area of specialization. And in the long run, it was agreed that this is an important area in CBC, and therefore it will be an area of specialization in teacher training. And therefore now I just seek a clarification on then, is this area now protected again in the policy, in the sector policy? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Josephine. I think she's put it right. Previously, in the CBC, it was not there as a standalone course, but now it had to be. There was a lot of debate around it until now. It is one of them. So, Trufena, please.
Thank you for the good presentation, and I realize the sector policy recognizes the need for early assessment and intervention. However, having gone to a few assessment centers about 1 or 2 years ago, I realized there's only one staff. And when I was training way back in the early year 2000, and I visited assessment center, there were at least 4 staff. So I'm wondering, at this point of time, I thought we should be bettering the assessment procedures, and I'm wondering how effective is one personnel who is probably trained in one area able to assess these children and be able to advise accordingly or make very good recommendation, and what is the way forward? That's one. And two, I'll go back to something that is said about home-based care. It's a very good thing, but I'm wondering how will you involve the teachers in the neighborhood, and who are they going to be answerable to as they go and educate these children at home in preparation for the schooling? Again, there are some children, in as much as we have the special need model, there are some children, again, we agree, may not even fit in that model. How will we cater for these children, irrespective of the fact that you're saying CBC is all special? Yes, I'm not a pessimist, but I know that there are children who may not even fit in that special needs model, because sometimes I carry out assessment and there's a child up to date, I'm not able to place her because she has multiple disabilities and I don't know which school where she can fit in. So again, I'm wondering, how are we going to cater for this group that is severely disabled and again probably may not fit into this system? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Grace?
Thank you. Thank you for the good presentation. My worry has been for a very long time about early intervention. When we talk about early intervention, how early is it are we talking about? Having been working in assessment for quite some time, when it comes to early intervention, it is a journey, and it is a big step, because
we are receiving these children when they have gone through some milestones, or they're supposed to have gone through some milestones. And you are to place them in schools. While I just pray that one time we look at early intervention in terms from the Ministry of Education side, because this mother went for the prenatal clinic, postnatal clinic, and even after postnatal clinic, this child, when he's brought forth for school placement, the doctor has a long story for this child. So unless there is a multidisciplinary approach for early intervention, we will realize that it is becomes still a challenge. Number two, as we talk of early intervention, remember these children are still children at age 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Even when the disability is so severe, we cannot take these children to special schools. They still need...
Check when we say yes, isn't it? But if you want... So, but even when you form the structure, they say, okay, we are formed. So how do we go about it? Then establishing a school-based, operationalizing that structure, the implementation itself. That's what we are actually telling that teacher there, and we are sitting here. It's until we take the chalk or whatever they use, and then we are given the most technical classroom, and like me, I'm told to teach is when I know. But that's what we are saying. So the schools are scattered. What we did, we brought them all online in one room like this room. We call it learning management system. And we were discussing inclusive education pedagogies. Some of the pedagogies they may use. This type of coming together was just in technology, we call it a sandbox. Like, it's not the actual. It was just to test them to see, can they really play online this ball of teaching, or they are just classroom. Yeah? So we have already seen what they can do online. And so when we structure the actual implementation, we will bear that in mind. So you see, we are doing monitoring and evaluation as we go even through the workshops. So we have done something online. So this has already been formed. They have known one another across Kenya, a school in Thikanos, a school in Kisumu, and another school in Machakos, and the actual people. And so they have collaborated. We were calling it collaborative problem-based learning. And you will be assessed by how much you collaborate online. And it is very easy, because I will simply check, did this teacher log in at all or not? I don't have to ask, did you log in or which date? Because the logs show when you got in, the date and the time, and what you actually did online. And so they have already gone through that. So already we have community of practice. That's what, in other words, I'm saying. Kenya has Teacher Futures community of practice, inclusive learning. It's there already picking up. Then we can call this a sustainable community. It is a national sustainable community. Community of practice. Kenya Teacher Futures is a sustainable community of practice. Their practice is to do with education and learning in secondary schools. And we want them to give us best practice at the end. At the end, we expect best practice from them. And what is that best practice that right now we can think about? So we can move on. So Kenya Teacher Futures is our work-based approach project. No going to the flight to attend a workshop, an international workshop or a national. No going. You know, we like to go. When I was in the government, and I really have fond memories of curriculum development. I loved going to workshops. In fact, those days we used to develop curriculum in Mombasa. It could not be done in KICD. And I loved Mombasa because when we could develop curriculum, it's 2 weeks. As long as I don't have a baby, I have no problem. But I'm not saying if you have a baby, you don't go. Some workshops, they allowed mothers to come with babies. And that was good. I also went with my small kid. That was nice. So, why did I like going? It's because there was the per diem. Is it still there? Per diem. And then you are a human being. Per diem. And then also in Mombasa, we swam every morning 6 a.m. in the ocean. And we washed one another's backs with sand. At 6 a.m., 6:30, we have showered, we are in the pool. And then by 7, we are at breakfast. Then when we start this curriculum, which is has outlived the purpose, and it was nice, we would do it so well. But now, this type of approach is not that one of curriculum and implementation. This is an approach you are told you stay where you are and grow from there, your professionalism. When you have done well, we shall give you some award, certificate award. And that certificate is recognized by the Ministry of Education, the TSC, and everybody globally. And so you have come up. Thank you. So, you know inclusivity. I hope you understand what has happened. So, this is a work-based approach. And teachers will develop, and we shall give them certificates. But how shall we know that this teacher qualifies for a certificate? Then it will be commonly recognized as learning on the job. The way doctors learn on the job. I hope they don't learn on patients. And the way engineers learn on the job. The way farmers learn on the job. So teachers will now go learning on the job. Then in summary, it's a school-based teacher development program. So we shall be calling it SBTD. That is the program. The rationale, why have we chosen school-based? The Commonwealth of Learning has money. Why not say some 4 teachers go to some workshop in Israel and you are trained? Then you come back and train the others, cascade model. Why not? This approach from evidence and research, which I needed to have quoted there, it enables teachers to try out new approaches and continuously improve pedagogic skills. We shall see how. Then at the same time, it affords opportunity for teachers to update the subjects they teach and the methods they use. So that when they go to do curriculum development and the curriculum is changing content, they are able to talk with confidence and say it will not work because of 1, 2, 3. They are able to think and reflect on their practice in an ongoing way, continuously. They keep on reflecting every day. And so through teacher-teacher learning approach, an explicit commitment to professional development enhances teacher personal status and identity. So that means teachers are teaching other teachers and the teachers teach others. So there are a lot of interactions among teachers in that one school. You can think of one school, you move with it in your visionary head. Like me, I already have one school. So now in that school, teachers continuously keep on interacting and exchanging information and improving on the lesson planning, that universal design for learning, and improving on the lesson delivery. Maybe there is a local helper who comes in the classroom also to support all those supports. And after that, they now say, when the examination comes, let's see how they perform. Then the performance has improved. And then they sit together again in that school and say, this is how we designed the lesson, this is how Mwalimu delivered it, and this is the outcome. And that means a lot of research will come out, and a lot of policy will come out. A lot of policies, we shall call them school-based policies. Schools will have autonomy to develop policies, and then they come out to the ministry, policy down. So that's the rationale why this approach is now overpowering the approach of traveling to a workshop far away, and also cost effective. You don't use so much money. And the certificates teachers get and the skills and knowledge takes them to the next level of professional development. Definitely teachers will be promoted. I hope you're not dozing. Not even check. Sorry, Felix. Supports for school-based teacher development. What type of, so if you want teachers to do so well, look at this thought. This is what you're thinking will help them do well. And now you will critique. So if you don't, you won't help us critique. You will throw them and say, this is what. There is communications technology involved. Use of information communication technologies. You can see already they have been on the learning management system. And they all came, even those who had never touched a mouse. You know why? We used a tool called webinar. So all you do, discuss offline. Call one another on the phone, discuss that topic, exchange on email. Then one of you presents. And when you come in to present, you only click a link and you enter. Like now you have entered here. Then present what your group has done. So that is an example of technology-enabled learning. There are others. All information from KISE and the Ministry of Education will come in, and you stakeholders will come in to support this initiative. The information, we shall package it to be user-friendly, to be received on the mobile phone. Because we are looking at where is this teacher, how are they operating there. So the phone is okay. So we shall be sending on phone, but they come online also using that phone. There is policymakers and political government playing some integral roles. Maybe not political, I don't know. But sometimes I think there is politics. Like now implementation of competency-based curriculum, there is a lot of politics. Then people come with their chest to put their points to be heard. So now chests are moving in Kenya over the implementation of CBC. And the winner takes it all. Sometimes when you see the winner, you keep quiet. There is no need of trading, then you lose. So there is policymakers and sometimes political government. Think of the school in the rural. Do you think there is political government interfering? I saw a school, was it where they bundled this principal out. Then they elected the deputy, until the deputy, you are now the principal. It was 2 months ago, is it? And I was wondering, what did the Iesd do to these people? I don't know what the Iesd did, I did not follow it up. Then there is this thing called top-down strategies aligned with on the ground, bottom-up strategies for successful changes to be realized. So like Madam Kaku from Ministry of Education, the TSC people, KISE, you people are at the top. We will be calling you mostly mentors. You are at the top. Then what you think is what we are saying here. What you think, we tell them, this is how to implement. Then we give them leeway to also tell us what they think they can, how they think they can implement. So that is the bottom up. And many times the bottom up will be the ideal thing to listen to and adopt. And so the top down and the bottom up strategies will be used. So that means a lot of conversations, consultations, interactions, collaborations. And so that means there must be an established channel of these communications. We don't leave them to go haywire. There will be some senior administrative leadership by the school principal. We are looking at the school principal is the key. If they don't, the school fails. What you want to do will fail. And we are training them. Then there will be teachers provided with conducive environment where they feel ownership for the professional development process they participate in. Professional development process, we shall see what it is. And there will be supervisors and mentors, all of us here, to avoid micromanaging the process. You know, you go there and say, hey, you are given funds and you are told to buy these assistive technologies. You did not do it. What happened to the money? Then the school is explaining, and then maybe even they used a very cost-effective way to do it. But you say, no, the policy says this, and so you must do this way. So that's not what we shall allow. We will not allow any micromanaging in the schools. No micromanaging. The second slide. So we wanted to see what is the context, the process and the content. So the context is where the learning will take place. The learners are the teachers. The teachers are the learners. Where will they be learning from? Those 20 schools. Some schools are regular, others have different disabilities. Some have mixed disabilities of children in the same school. They are mixed. And then the process, how the learning will take place, how will the teachers learn, and the content, what will be learned. What is that content? So the context is the professional learning community in each school, which we are now calling the community of practice. Remember I showed you community of practice before? That community of practice is the one that we are going to go with to bring sustainable development for inclusive education in the 20 schools in Kenya. So we are using community of practice, a group of schools, intertwined, interconnected, and enabled to collaborate at different levels and exchange information and create knowledge. This knowledge we are calling it resources which they have uploaded, for instance, and those resources, they will be open education resources, and in that way they will be taking part in knowledge economy, creation of knowledge economy. If you remember the goal, and we are going with goal number 4 to achieve this whole project, sustainable development goal. Then such learning communities are manned by leadership teams that ensure continuous instructional improvement. The universal design lesson plan template we shall give them, they may throw it away and say it didn't work in our school because of 1, 2, 3. And so because of that, this is the right one working. And you, government, Ministry of Education, TSE, must adopt it. And so it will be those teams when they sit, the school team, when they sit and discuss after assessing a lesson within the school, then it necessitates the provision of resources to support the community of practice and collaborative learning among teachers. Resources include financial resources. I've heard some people say certain schools have not yet accessed the financial resources as Madam Kavu presented. They have not yet accessed their resources. So where are these finances? Or they got lost on the way. And then there are other resources. It could be material for reading. It could be human resources from local environment. It could be a certain parent who helps the school, things like that. All forms of resources will be tapped into that school. And it's the school teams to ensure they have worked and they assemble the resources they need. The process is technology driven. You know, when we say technology driven, people say, no, I don't know about computers. There's no computer, we are using the phones, cell phones. But if you have a laptop, why not use a laptop? If you have a desktop, why not use a desktop? But we are targeting use of mobile phones, and then learning time is flexible. We shall train the teachers to teach flexibly, depending on the context of the classroom. And so, the teachers themselves will also learn flexibly, so that they are also going to administer their lessons flexibly in that classroom. And then it calls for a paradigm shift in the way the mentors, who are ourselves, the Minister of Education, Iesd, TSC, KICD, NEC, all of us, where we have come from, it calls for a paradigm shift in the way we conduct the business of teaching and learning. So that means the way we want to tell them to do it. Then the learning process is more horizontal, involving multiple interactions, and it's not like the traditional, which is vertical. You take my instructions, I have said, I'm the authority. It will no longer be like that. It will be like, for example, if the highest person from the Ministry of Education visited a school, they should also teach also. Do it by example. Maybe suppose you teach this way, or let me prepare this lesson, I'll come back and teach next week. So you visit a county, and then as you go to schools, you go away and plan lessons for a return trip, so that we are not authoritative. We are just partners helping this learning to be successful. Then after the process, we have the content will be quality teaching and enhanced learning outcomes. Those outcomes we are hearing, they don't even pass. And so now they are not, although now there is affirmative action which has been entrenched in the process, but this learning in these 20 schools, we want it to visibly show a big improvement has happened. Then the teachers' pedagogical content knowledge will be enhanced in inclusive learning pedagogies. So the teacher will be able to tap on this pedagogy and on that one and be able to implement. Then teachers are exposed to a variety of research-based instructional strategies and the classroom assessments that will lead to improved student learning. And at the same time, the practice orients both mentors and teachers towards more learner-centered active methodologies. Just like I had her respond, she said, NEC, when they give exam and then they add 30 minutes, it's not viable. It's not realistic. So why keep repeating the same? And so she said, for instance, why not record? Ask the learner and record their responses, and then you carry the audio, NEC. So NEC will also go ICT as we go through this process. And the learners will be evaluated in a more realistic way, not just following stiff policies in place like that, so that we cater for them also nicely and also motivate them for life. You know, when they find just a small success, it might lift them to another level and another one and another one. Implications, so mentors, school principals, and champions will need to explore alternative approaches to teaching familiar content. When I was a lecturer, lecturing science in college, after 5 years as a lecturer, everything was in my head. The scheme of work book was a black book with black cover. I kept it somewhere, and I would go with chalk and say, today we shall do this experiment, because there are technicians as well assembled in the apparatus. And then I say, you go in your groups and do the experiment. Then they finish, then I say, so what were your findings? Then we record, and then I tell them, now draw the diagram, because Nick will ask the same question. And then label and do this. Then I would walk out, and I didn't carry any material with me, because the content was in my head. But when it comes to this approach, we are saying the last line, alternative approaches to teaching familiar content. You see, the content was familiar to me. I have to think of something alternative, so that it's not the same routine. Thank God the students were always different. If they were the same, they would be so bored, repeating the same thing. Then the framework for school-based summary, we can say in this summary that the context will help creating learning communities in those schools. Each school will be a learning community of practice. Each school is a learning community of practice. Then they can network with other schools as we put them online, and we call that one a national learning community of practice for teacher futures in Kenya. Then they can start collaborating with you people who are really external, and we say that is another bigger community of practice. So everything revolves around community of practice, and then recruit school. Each school will recruit school champions who will guide and ensure continuous implementation, because the principal may be overwhelmed. Then there will be provision for appropriate resources to support the learning. The resources is as identified per school, which means each school will do an assessment. Each school will have their own small baseline like before they start. Each school will from where they are. It's not to start at a certain level imposed on them, to start implementing from where they are. So from their own baseline, like the results is what they will use to implement in their school, and that is a small community. They can share with another school and tell them, as we started too low, but this is what we found out, and things like that. The process, it will utilize, of course, mobile technology and review multiple sources of information. We'll give them handheld information, print. We'll give them web resources. We will, a lot of information, multiple sources. So why is because certain learners will need multiple resources to be used in the teaching and learning. The content, of course, you are saying they will review methodological issues connected to enhance learning outcomes and provide pedagogical content knowledge. So these teachers, what are we saying in short? At the end, hey, there will be inclusive education pedagogical experts in Kenya to showcase whatever they have done to the world. So that the structure, this structure, we can go to the lower one. The following composition is recommended. Of course, every school will have a structure because they are the ones to implement. So the principal will chair, there will be a committee chaired by the principal, and then the school champion to serve as coordinator and the secretary to that committee. Then there will be the heads of departments, and then there will be the subject heads, and maybe a beginner teacher who is lower there. I know as I talk there is a structure in the schools which is being used by this new system of how do you call it? There's a system of checking how teachers are progressing. So there must be a structure. Yes, it is TPAD. It is a structure. It must be there. So we shall allow them do baseline and adopt their TPAD or improve on it, because we don't want to change unless there's something wrong with the structure they are having. But this is the one we are saying proposed. The structure that will be in the school to run that vehicle. So the next one is the operationalizing the structure. The committee will ensure that the essential components of this program, such as the professional learning communities in the school, the micro-learning practices and procedures are consistent. Micro-learning, what are micro-learning sessions? For instance, if a teacher was teaching in the classroom and they have now developed the very first ever universal design learning lesson, and the other teachers and the principal want to look at how the teacher implements it. So they'll sit in the classroom, not to assess the lesson, but just to see how it goes, and then they will give feedback after that lesson. The feedback is to help all of them, those who are teaching and those who are not teaching. That type of whole composition is called a micro-learning session. So those type of micro-learning will be there, because after that lesson has been successful, we will take it, if the teacher allows, and publish it online with the teacher's credentials among the open education resources for public domain consumption. And so the teacher will be contributing to knowledge economy. So all these resources will be published online when they have been used as open education resources under Creative Commons Share Alike publishing license. Operationalizing the structure, all enrollees, those are people enrolled, are actively participating in the activities of the program. That one is difficult. You heard in the morning, it was said attitudes are hard. Teachers have attitudes. We've trained the principals how to work with them, to help them change attitudes. But you see, attitude is so difficult to change. If they don't change attitudes, they will not all participate. So I don't know what we shall do there. Think about it. And then there will be prompt support whenever support is needed. For instance, this child is always sick because of this disability. Prompt support. Where will this support come so quickly? Then enabling environments for effective implementation of the program. And that means the principal has to ensure that, and sometimes it's beyond the principal's control if there are politicians around the school who run it. Then there will be monitoring and assessment of the impact, not even of ongoing, of the impact of the program. There should be a mechanism, because we will want an impact. So we have to put some mechanism in place now that will help us to be able to realize the impact. We don't finish and then an external evaluator comes to do end line, and then now is when we realize, oh, we didn't have any mechanism to lead us to the impact. So we shall have that established before we launch that program. So the note is, if challenges arise, they will be addressed by the school committee, chaired by the principal, coordinated by the school champion, and the school will have a very clear vision. You can see there, without a clear vision and supportive leadership, the school will not do that. So that means when they start, the school will develop a vision, inclusive education vision, to be a school of excellence in implementing inclusive education, something like that. I don't know how they write. Then the implementation, they do an action plan. Each school develop a plan, scheduling micro-learning sessions. It means you use the timetable, the school timetable, and indicate which subjects will have will be assessed, and so they'll have micro-learning, and weekly micro-learning to be combined into monthly, maybe termly. And then number 3, allow participants to share, exchange ideas and experiences around whatever is being taught. Then a list of recommended resources that can also, people can also go back to read and enrich what has been delivered. And then each unit and the module course ends with a reflection on what has been learned. Now, that is very important, because imagine if we have many lessons and each one was a reflection, you can consolidate all the reflections across the subjects in the school, and then you could map out certain similarities, certain things that will improve or do something about the school. You can share it out to the national community of practice and international. Like Kenya was Kenya beat the Gambia. They were to collaborate together. Then Kenya came with a lot of force and overpowered the Gambia. They were left behind. So they gave up following up. They are behind somewhere. They'll be linked with another country. Maybe they are gathered momentum. Anyway, so there are all those we can share nationally and with other countries and so on. So reflection. In fact, we are having now a trend in education, a very important trend on reflective practice. It's very modern. So we want to see inclusive education, reflective practice. It will come from those sessions, micro-learning sessions. Then when we come to the next slide is the implementing process. I will want maybe to change this up because of this morning's interactions. They were very nice. We have evaluation, sharing of outcomes, and making adjustments being done to the whole of the national project. As Frida said, they may share in this forum or the next forum. The baseline has already been done. But we shall also have evaluation at the school level, because this national one is a blanket covering 20 schools. It may not augur so well with the needs and demands from my school. So each school will also be given opportunity to do a small of their own and make adjustments. This adjustment is what we are calling the plan. Make a plan. They say the name of the school and the plan. The plan will have a vision and activities to be implemented, the micro-learning sessions. Then there will be school-based coordinating committee, comprehensive implementation plan, then communities of practice. This plan will be shared among, you can share among the schools, if the school wants. Because this is a group of learners who are being trained to use the open education resources from other people, repurpose them, that means adjust them, edit them, review them, then use them to create a new knowledge. And so you can share in the communities of practice, and then they go to the classroom. So the implementation phase activities will be facilitating community of practice meetings in the school. Number 2, administering micro-learning sessions. Number 3, disseminating or sharing. Number 4, collaborating with other community of practice in other schools. And then engaging in collaborative learning and networking and developing an electronic portfolio. Now I want to stop there. Biology and chemistry. I love chemistry. Teaching chemistry. Actually, my books are in the. They didn't come in the red book, but they are in the red chemistry. And this chemistry, I've been teaching, and they have been assessing me as I combined my lesson plans, the resources I used. Some were local. I put them together, and align them together, and form my portfolio. Then this portfolio, when I share online, it becomes e-portfolio. And this portfolio is what we shall use to award the teacher the certificate of successful completion or not. So it's a very key document within this implementation framework. The next slide, forming communities of practice. We have already talked about that. Basically, it's the principal, the school champion, and some head of department, and another teacher will comprise the community of practice. But they are not the only ones. They are the ones to get the key information, then sit with the others and say, we are going to see a geography lesson. Let's all go. And then this is universal design. So they'll be training the whole school, that committee. And so you can move to the next slide, because all this is what I've said, micro-learning sessions, I've said. You can move on. So we come to learning communities of practice. For the teacher to get the certificate, so there will be collaborative learning through discussions with colleagues in the communities of practice. Who are these colleagues? You will be part of the community of practice, because you see, you want to, if you are linking up with schools, you want to see, are they doing something you really wanted them to do or not? Then, of course, KISE and MOE, TSC, KICT is missing there. Will also give feedback about the assessment or something to the trainee, and then there will be virtual communication on the mobile. Virtual communication on the mobile is done by a specific mentor. Someone appointed who will be moderating the learning. There will be many, not one, because the schools are many. And so that virtual communication, we say, week 1, we want to start. In fact, before we start, we have 3 weeks. Before we start that program, we have 3 weeks for policy and all those to be done. So 3 weeks before, there will be a message sent from virtual, maybe MOE, TSC, to say, we are about to start, and you need to have a plan, your plan. Is it in place? What is your baseline showing? Is it good to go, to let you go? Or is there something going to hamper your movement? That is virtual communication on the mobile phone. Choop, a message goes. And then there is the response. There's forum for response and discussion. And other schools could be doing it better, though they also say, oh, we have this, and this is how we are doing it, so people borrow from there. Then there will be self-study exploitation of online and web resources and writing assignments. So we shall give resources required. And these resources will be deliberately be aligned to the school's needs, the 20 schools. We will not just pick anything, oh, this or that, and bring, no. We will look at the needs of the schools, put in one basket, and design resources for them. So those are selections. Then with facilitators or champions or peers and principals, to the teachers being trained. Then there's assessment of e-portfolio. Then the certificate is awarded. That certificate will be a very nice certificate. So I've already explained about the done about the monitoring and evaluation is done. The roles of mentors. The school principal will have so many roles. We don't need to go through. Those are the roles we shall review with school principals. And there will be roles for school champions, for that school to succeed. Then we have teachers' roles, the teachers who are participating. Then we have relationships in the school-based in-service program. We can go on. So this is the relationship. No, we can go back. That relationship in school, in the school. We have the school champion who talks two-way with the teachers who are implementing, and there are micro-learning going on, other teachers are brought in, and also two-way with the principal. And these are being coordinated by KISE. The Ministry of Education will channel what they need through KISE, and then KISE reaches the schools, or things like that. And then we have, of course, we have them there, Ministry of Education, TSC, KICT, NEC, through KISE. And then KISE will be in charge of the frameworks that are coming. I believe we might review the framework. Madam Kapoor presented the implementation framework, and we will go and review it. We shall review it. If it's okay, it goes. If not, then we fill up any gaps or we just enhance. Then this is now just the schools. But when we have them, the next slide, when we have them with you people, now the green comes in. Other than the education sector with all the stakeholders of education, the green are the people outside there. And these people outside there are the ones that can play another very important critical role for the success. The local aid people, the agencies, that work in any form of inclusive learning, inclusivity, that are not to do with school direct, are in the green. The people that may improve the environment, you never know, even the school cleaner, that one who makes gardens and cleans and sweeps, you never know, they would be improving. Maybe puts some improvised stairs for students to use. Those people in the green, they are players that are key to the success of this program. So the policy support from the ministry, it is a clear statement of policy that is distributed to the schools. We will not take what Madam Kaku has presented today and distribute. No, no, no. We have to review. When we agree with it, then we say let it go. And also when schools are, we have given them also a say to look at it in the external support. We will facilitate local group meetings of school principals, head teachers in advance of this program. So it means if you saw something itchy, you don't let it go. You send out a whistle and say, hey, there's this one, don't start yet. And then arrange any support sessions that external support can provide to the school. When you know this one has not been working, this is now the time. You want to capture everything. Then establish any online support for schools and teachers. There'll be a certificate, baseline, school statistics. School statistics will be how many teachers have delivered, maybe how many female teachers male, what that is kawaida, but it will be like when we have best practice, you know, a teacher will say, I want to give a webinar. Why not allow them to come online and give a webinar to everybody? And then this resource will help improve it. Those type of statistics will come in. Students who do well, we want to reward them. How will the other students be motivated? Students, we can give them a little money, we can give them also certificates. It's not only for teachers because they have worked hard through the system and are excelling. And so there will be some statistics other than just the numbers we have now. External support can also advise on future professional development targets, you people. And then this may well be worked out in the context of local and regional teachers for professional development. And so the common way of learning is really looking up to you to really support this project. It will come from what you do now and what you would like to do, and they will follow up. They're going to follow up. On you direct. They may not come to Iesd, they may come or not, I don't know, but they will. So we have already talked about that. And so that is the strategy that Teacher Future Kenya is looking forward to implement, and I welcome your critique.
Thank you. Thank you.
Are the teachers going to handle all the subjects in the sense that all subjects are included in this process of their specific subjects that have been chosen? The number 3, and my last question now, from the capacity development side, yes, from what you've described, the teachers are going to be taken through a process. But at what point do we actually connect the knowledge that the teachers have gotten with the practice so that the knowledge that they have is actually put in a class?
All through you have shared, I have not seen any time frame for the activities that you have highlighted. Because knowing that our system, our education system in secondary school is really congested. Are you adopting that? Are you envisaging to adopt the current time frame, or what time frame are you giving so that we can achieve what you have shared?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. Yeah, mine is a bit of a humble request to the facilitator that if it would be possible, we be given the presentation. Realize it's quite detailed, and I would need a lot of time so that we want to go through, probably to get a few things clear.
Yeah. So the geographical spread of the schools, Frida, you will also assist me here. Actually, the project tried to cover schools as much as possible across the counties. But you see, this pilot was very limiting, as is the case for pilots all over the world. Pilots are supposed to be very limiting, to choose schools as close as possible because of financial implications, and so that's how pilots go everywhere else. And so because of that, I think KISE has tried the best, because they have spread out in a number of counties. We have counties from Western, Nyanza, Kiambu, Eastern, Machakos. They are those ones. There are about 5, not 5, there are more counties. There are about 7 counties that have been included. And again, this geographical spread, there are 9. There are 9 counties. The spread was in view of the type of school, to have a mix of the type of schools, because we can't run away from that. In Kenya, we do have different types of schools. We still have, as you saw in the morning, completely schools that are special needs completely, and then we do have regular, we have different disabilities. So they were being mixed, even though they were selected from 9 counties. The second question was the subjects. Is this project going to target all the subjects in a school? Yes. It will target all the subjects in a school. It's no longer like STEM or the way we have been having targeting science. It's all the subjects in a school. And then there is a at what point do you connect?
Connection between knowledge
and when it starts, timelines. The launch is scheduled for early 2020, launching the project to schools. Before that, there is a lot of resource development, including this workshop. There's another workshop to develop resources for it. And so any type of resource that we need has got to be developed and refined. But it is earmarked for launch in January, February 2020, to run for 2 years after the launch. To run for 2 years. And then the schools, is true, the schools are so congested. In fact, when you go with a new initiative, they say, no, we are already busy. And so we will not want to interfere with the school's frameworks in place, the structures. We will only build around it, or just enhance it, or just mainstream through the same while we implement the project, so that the teacher is not overloaded, or we don't want to overload even the principal or the school leadership teams or any teacher there. How will you identify the champion? Actually, I went through the roles of principal and the others brushing. Among the roles of the principal is to give a system, a better way of identifying the school champion, because you realize the principal has the mandate. We cannot choose for the principal. We don't know the teachers. The principal knows them. So it will be through some mechanism in the school, not just the principal solely, but some mechanism established to identify some.
Talked a lot about inclusive education, and
also looked at the trends in relation to sustainable communities. Today we also have a lot in store because we are going to look at sustainable policies, community policies for safeguarding children with disabilities, and our facilitators are ready with the information. But before we do that, I will request Madam Frida to come and do for us the recap for yesterday.
Thank you, Daktari. Good morning.
Good morning.
This is another day that the Lord has made. We are here so that we finalize on our program for the day, so that we are able to conclude this workshop and say it is well. So yesterday we ended several sessions, several informative sessions, and this morning before we start our day's activities, or the day's sessions, then we need.
Yesterday we also, thank you. Well, good morning all. Good morning. Yesterday we happened to gather in our groups and discussed ways that we interrelate with schools. So we had different ways that we discussed on how we interrelate with schools, and also viewed other ways that we can interrelate more, so as we, grow together. Yes.
So Zakari, you will be the one to pass the ball to somebody else. You can choose the person you will pass to. I know Trufena is right on your right. Then Trufena now can proceed.
Okay, yesterday we learned about UDL principles, and there are three: multiple means of expression, multiple means of representation, and multiple means of engagement. And from these I learned that we should have diverse ways through which we perform various activities in our classroom, so that all learners with diverse needs are involved in all that takes place in the classroom.
Thank you. Now I'll give instructions. The ball must go across. So as the ball crosses over the floor to the other side, that was an important aspect that Trufena raised. There were principles of universal design for learning, and these principles, they talked more about multiple this, multiple this, multiple this, multiple presentations, multiple engagement, multiple the other one, expressions, so that the learners are also able to express themselves in the ways that they are able to express themselves, so that the facilitator or the institution is able to provide multiple options for them to be comfortable. So the ball has crossed over this other side, I think, to Solomon Buhara. Then now he's trying to catch up. But Wafula wants to save his...
I will send my colleague here.
Yes.
Okay, morning colleagues. Yeah, I think we set off very well with the George Maura taking us through a presentation on inclusive education. And I did mention quite a number of issues from his presentation. Yeah, the first one was the principles, what are the guiding principles of inclusive education. He moved on and cited a few things to do with the challenges that may be faced in the implementation of inclusive education. He quite mentioned other things like the practices, what are the accepted practices all over pertaining inclusive education. He also cited the role the teachers to play in the implementation of inclusive education. And to wrap it up, I think he dwelled a lot on the benefits of inclusive education. Yeah, I think I've taken people that can throw the ball.
The rule, it has to cross over.
It has to cross over. Betty, the ball's coming.
Then it can come back and
ball's
finally
coming.
it will find Solomon sometime. Thank you very much, Mr. Wafula. That was a good overview. there were also the challenges of inclusive education, and that is one of the reasons why we are here today, because we have organizations. We need to take, to alleviate a few of these challenges of the difficult moments that inclusion goes through. So the ball went to Betty. Betty, I think you have the mic now.
Okay, good morning everyone.
Good morning.
Yeah, yesterday we learned a lot of things, and I also want to talk about the same issue that somebody has said about the IE. There's something that we left behind about the vision of IE. What we are aiming to focus. Later, after here, what will take place. There was also the issue of the role of teachers, how the teachers can be able to interact with the learners in the inclusive learning, and many more. So that is in the area of IEP. Then we also saw something to do with the sector on policy. There was sector policy of learners and trainees with disabilities that we were taken through by the madam from the ministry. And this one, I also saw it was very important because it was a way of supporting learners with disabilities and also the trainees, which was very important. Where I was seeing the learners who were severe in disabilities, where they could learn, where they could be. So this sector policy really supported those learners because they were not going to be in the inclusive classroom, but also they were looking at where they could be. If they cannot fit in the inclusive classroom, where would they be? But in this policy, it was seen clearly that they were supporting these learners. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Betty. I think she revisited two things. Betty, you were almost making some other people wamalizie chenye watasema. But she mentioned something that George presented yesterday about the vision. And at that moment when George was presenting about the vision of inclusive education, there was a circle of many themes. So he presented themes in achieving the vision of inclusive education, and there were 10 themes. One of the themes, remember, was external links. There was another theme on IEP, a theme on curriculum, and so many other things. Probably you need to revisit the other 7. So thank you very much, Betty. Remember the rule of the ball.
The ball is refusing to stand. Okay. Good morning, everyone.
Yes.
My name is Rahab. Through yesterday, I was very happy. I learned a lot of things in the special education area. So we talked about how this thing can be able to support our learners and how the funds can also be dispersed to different schools. And I think Madam Kaku explained very well how these funds can be able to disperse to these special schools so that at least they can be able to reinforce the learners in the school. I feel that this is very good, and how this money can also be supervised. And also many schools are missing a lot of things in this, and how they can be able to utilize and use this money very well. This was very nice. And also, I learned something about special needs education and about inclusive education, how we can be able to separate this from the regular schools, and how we can also integrate it, and how the government is also trying to make sure that inclusive education and the various challenges that we are facing and how we can be able to practice this. So inclusive education has a lot of benefits. The special needs learners. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Rahab. That was very informative. It is reminding us of many things that happened yesterday. I've had Rahab touched on what Madam Kaku presented on moving from exclusion towards inclusion, and the journey is not very easy, but we've gone some steps. We've gone to from segregation to the special, those are the special schools, towards now the integrated, where we have also the units, and now we want to move to having the students included in the same class. So that was very good, Rahab. She also revisited the universal design for learning. That is great. Very good. So pass over the good, yes.
The ball, she wants to throw very far, not near here. She was very tricky, yeah? She told us she wants to throw it very far. Okay. Thank you very much, my friend. You've explained almost everything, a lot of things. So I want us to look at what we learned yesterday through the Ministry of Education and the practical strategies in the education area. And we continue to see how the Ministry of Education is trying to look at the inclusive education, the external, and how the things with the integration and the different ways in which they can be able to support the community. So I feel that this is very important, and it's also looking at the universal part of it. That I felt that this was very important to us, and how we can also be able to achieve this. So we should try to use these skills in our systems. Thank you.
Wow, that was wonderful. Universal design for learning. Again, if we can achieve it, then we will go far. We will really be able to cross over to inclusion, especially at secondary school levels. Thank you very much, Margaret. The ball. Remember the rule, it has to now cross over. Great.
Okay, thank you, good morning. I think yesterday I enjoyed the presentations that were given, beginning with the presentation on Introduction to IE by George. It was quite refreshing just to think of the objectives of IE, the principles, and even the problems and challenges that the learners face. So we were able to go through especially the challenges, which I felt are still very important for us, even as we continue interrogating inclusive education in this country. I think the presentation by Kaku was also very interesting on UDL, and she gave a lot of insights on what it is all about and how it is carried out. She also was able to give us the legal framework and the policy, and I think that was an interesting presentation, because I think we were able to interrogate that policy, just to look at what is entailed in the policy. And I think many of us were able to participate and just look at what it means for this program and for learners with special needs. I think the last presentation that was made by Elizabeth, our consultant. I think I kept going out, but I was able to understand. I was looking forward to understanding the sustainable communities, what is happening, and I, unfortunately, as I was walking out, but I think I was able to get a few of the insights about the sustainable communities and what is happening around. And after that, we were able to do our assignment on what each one of us is doing in the country, in areas of IE and for the community. And I look forward to continuing with that project in this country, in Kenya. And I think I'm privileged to be part of the project. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Karari. She reminded us that any journey that doesn't have any challenge is not an interesting journey. Why? Because if we are not facing any challenge in the journey of inclusion, then it means that we don't have any reason even to have this workshop. So we are here because we need to straighten up the challenges, to address those challenges. And she also reminded us that the sector policy has given a whole chapter on inclusive education. So we need to feel comfortable because we are already covered under the policy, and we need to be the implementers of that policy towards achieving inclusive education, especially scaling it up to secondary school level. So at this juncture, I'd like to welcome those that have just come. We are ending the session of the recap. I think we have at least explored the various sessions that we had yesterday. So I wish to give the mic to a new participant who has arrived today, so that,
listened, and I think whatever you listened, you went home with it and came back with it. And I hope you will practice it, just like the parable of the sower says that those people who had the word went with it and were able to make use of it. So I hope you will leave the word, but you have been able to explain that you learned yesterday. Right now, we are going to have a presentation from Mr. Sanoy on, I think, legal frameworks. Yes. So, Mr. Sanoy, we are pressed with time, so I hope you will be within the time because we are beyond time. You're welcome.
Morning, everybody. I'm doing a presentation on legal frameworks. I'll run a little bit fast. I was supposed to have started this at 8:30, but here we are. I expected colleague to tell me to finish at 9 because I've got another meeting I'm chairing which is starting now at 9, which involves external partners, so it's not very interesting. So in case then I have to run, please understand me. That's the situation I am in. I'm running through legal frameworks, both international and policy statutes in the country that have touched on inclusive education. But I was interested to look at where have we come, what was the situation there before, and how have we come here. Let's go. Okay. I started from Jomtier. That was 1990. That's quite some times back. How many years? 1990 up to now? Where are we? How many years is that? 28. Let us look at it from that time. So in Thailand, there was a World Conference, which was nicknamed World Declaration on Education for All. That was the report that came out of that meeting. Essentially, Jomtien was on EFA, That's what they were discussing. Education for all. They said this conference was particularly significant because it acknowledged that a large number of vulnerable persons were out of the education system. And they really never brought out clearly or really delineate who is out of the system. So in the process, and you remember when Madam Kaku was talking, I brought out something that Jomtien talked of a broad category of people. And in the process then, we got to lose some people. So when they say education for all, who is this all? Did they make clear who the all is? So they lumped people together. And in fact, the key word that was being used is all in quotes. That is what Jomtien did. So then we drove effort for quite a long time until Dakar 2000. So quite a long time we were talking of education for all. That is what happened. Let's move on. It also presented a big vision of education as a much broader concept than school, beginning with early childhood. That is one thing they did. Because remember what is Kenya doing? Kenya is coming to appreciate how many years after Jomtien to bring early childhood into mainstream education system. When have we brought it, early childhood? Into mainstream education? That we now realize and really plan for it as a country. How many years? That was 1990. When did early childhood come into the Basic Education Act as a mainstream program? 20? Doctor? You're not very sure. 2012? 2012? When did we have the Basic Education Act? 20? 2013. How many years after Jomtien? Yeah? Now you can calculate. If you have not done mathematics, don't bother with it. So then it brought that one forward. This was a landmark conference in the development of thinking about inclusive education. Yes, but they really never brought it out as inclusive education. They still called it education for all. That is what happened. They never brought it out. We shall see when it really came out as inclusive education. Let's move on. I brought this one out deliberately because here was a meeting for partners. So during the World Declaration on Education for All, that one came out as a strong issue in provision of effort. National, regional, and local education authorities have a unique obligation to provide basic education for all, but they cannot be expected to supply every human financial or organizational requirement for this task. New and revitalized partnerships at all levels will be necessary. Governments were required there to work with partners. I'm happy Renata is around and our colleague next to him and the other partners there. This is then when it was realized it is very vital to bring forth partners because of a provision of effort. And Article 7 came out very clearly for that purpose in Jomtien. Then we have got the standard rules in 1993. UN standard rules on the equalization of opportunities for persons with disabilities. It required member states to recognize the principle of equal educational opportunities for children, youth, and adults with disabilities in integrated settings. You see what the standards rules are talking about? They are talking of integration. Are we together? They are still in the old system. The standard rules are talking of provide education in integrated settings. Although they appreciate disability, but they are still talking of integrated settings. Let's move on. Then we have got Salamanca. Immediately after the standard rules, we had Salamanca, which was quite a key conference. This is where then there was a breakthrough
for inclusive education. When they realized, EFA, Jomtien is talking about EFA. Where are we? The Salamanca Conference was further evidence of the history of separate thinking. You know what happened? Those who are in special needs education realized they needed to move to another level. And therefore they were contradicting Jomtien. And they said, we are not in agreement. So they came up with Salamanca. And in Salamanca they said, EFA is not going to work for children with disabilities. What is going to work for them is inclusion. So then they had a different thought at this level. And they broke away from the thinking of EFA. Separate thinking. So that's why I've put that statement very clear. The Salamanca Conference was further evidence of the history of separate thinking. But now they were able to come out with this conference to say, not EFA. And even if we have got EFA, then inclusive education should be the driving force to achieve EFA, education for all. If we are to achieve education for all, then inclusion is the way of educating learners with special needs and disabilities. Not integration, not any other approach. Are we together? This is what happened at Salamanca. It was organized by the 10th Special Needs Education Department in UNESCO to maximize the opportunities created by who? By Jomtien. So now they were trying to tell Jomtien, fine, talk of education for all. But who is this education for all? In order for us to achieve EFA, let us move to inclusion. That is what Salamanca did. Let's move on. It called on the international community to endorse the approach of inclusive schools. That is what happened now in Salamanca. They were not refuting EFA. No, not at all. But they say EFA without inclusion is not achievable. So then they now came to stamp the authority on their thinking about education for children with disabilities. Let's move on. Since Salamanca, the term inclusive education has taken on multiple meanings. Yes. I write this one, and I'm very deliberate about my questions at the end there. But let us read. Has taken on multiple meanings across the globe. It's sometimes used in England to describe practices within special schools. In some UK contexts, inclusive education is no longer associated with disability or special needs, but rather with school attendance or behavior. What about in Kenya? What do we associate inclusive education with? Disability. What about South Africa? What do we associate inclusive education with? Racism. Is it? Yes. That is the perspective. That is the context. So different countries have taken inclusive education with different contexts. If you go to a country like Sierra Leone, what will be their perspective of inclusion? Very different. You need to study that one and check out. Yeah, I'm not here to teach you. I'm here to raise issues. If you go to a country like Djibouti, what is their context of inclusive education? That is a country with a very high population of refugee children. So their perspective is different again. But here we are saying inclusion is towards inclusion of learners with special needs and disabilities. Let's move on. Then, after that, they realized that they need to move forward in implementing inclusive education. And they were now preparing for Dakar. When was Dakar? Yeah? When was Dakar? We are not very sure. You can go back to your readings and check out. So then they told regions, as we prepare for Dakar, can you kind of do an examination of Salamanca? What happened? Or rather, not even, in fact, not Salamanca. an examination of Jomtien. So I think Dakar was 2000, because it is 10 years after Jomtien. Jomtien was 1990, Salamanca was now a review of it to see the achievements 10 years after, which was 2000. So in 1999, now they carried out regional evaluations. So there was the Sub-Saharan Africa, there was the Europe, the Americas, the East, and all those kinds of things. So this was our own examination, Sub-Saharan Africa report. And they called it what? A framework for action in Sub-Saharan Africa, education for African Renaissance in the 21st century. Very many words. You know, Africans must use the word Renaissance. Yeah. Even in politics and all those kinds of things. Adopted by the Regional Conference on Education for All for Sub-Saharan Africa. That was in South Africa, 1999. So let's move on. So what did they use it for? Pay special attention to street and working children. Nomadic communities, you see the African context in it. Nomadic communities, children in remote environments and areas of conflict. Minority groups, HIV/AIDS orphans. Zachary, in South Africa, the issue of HIV/AIDS orphans is also contextualized in inclusive education. Child prisoners and disabled children. Obviously, there are African war-torn countries where then you have got child prisoners and all those kinds of things. So they wanted to improve access to special needs, to inclusive education within the African context. And that was their context. The HIV/AIDS, the child prisoners, children with disabilities, and all those kinds of things. So they contextualized it to the African region because it was a sub-Saharan report. Let's move on. Pay special attention to the life skills needed for coping with such problems as this. Especially people in areas of chronic conflicts, still the same thing. But they were then talking of life skills for these people. Let's move on. Then it was then a build-up to review, then they moved to Dakar 2000. The objective to provide effort by the year 2015 includes children with disabilities. Let me ask the question. Did we achieve education for all as a country? I'm asking a question and you must answer me. There is no question of whether you'll answer me or not. You must answer me. Did we achieve effort as a country? So you better have an answer because I'll come for you. Yeah. Kifeda?
Yeah, but yes and no.
Yes.
Yes, because we declared education free at one point.
When did we declare education free?
That was 2003.
Yeah?
2003.
2003. Were we running to achieve effort?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes, so when we declared education free, it meant that it opened doors for all children,
yeah,
even from minority group and even from impoverished backgrounds. However, again, I say no because we do not. Yes, there are policies to ensure that these children. Again, we made sure there are policies to ensure that children are in school. But we have, again, ensured that children have to have uniform and such, and sometimes parents fail to take their children to school because of lack of uniform, lack of other facilities that, children need in order to go to school.
That was 2000.
Yeah.
When we were running to achieve effort, did we target to facilitate inclusive education in effort? When we were running to achieve effort and say everybody dash to school, did we deliberately plan to achieve inclusive education the way Salamanca was trying within effort?
No.
Yeah?
No. Yes.
Mr. Ofula, you're saying yes?
I would say yes.
Yeah.
When you look at, like in 203, look at the statement that came up, that all children have now to go to school, regardless of age, All those, there were about 6 things that were put there. There was the socioeconomic status, the age, the gender. Colleagues help me.
No, you are alone. Because you are saying yes, they were saying no. So they can't help you.
Yeah, but I still say it was, I think there was an attempt towards a yes.
Professor?
I'm with him.
You are with him. That we were able to facilitate inclusive education within the effort.
I would say yes, because it's around the same time that we also came up with the Person with Disabilities Act,
When was
which
that?
emphasized
Which year?
2003.
2003?
Yes, 03. That emphasizes provision for children with disability in education. So in as much as yes, we may say no, but when we open doors, we facilitate funding for these children. We have policies. Then actually, we are actually ensuring that they are actually included in special needs education. I mean, in inclusive education. Sorry.
Renalda, I know Leonard Cheshire does a lot of inclusive education programs in this country. What is your response to that? When we were trying, and obviously you have got a lot of experience from the field, when we were trying to say everybody get to class, did we facilitate inclusive education within that context?
Thank you, Mr. Ugonjwa, and something else. So, Jinga is education, by educating people. Moi also, by ensuring that, by declaring free education, compulsory education, primary school, that was also an effort to ensure every child goes to school. And then come Kibaki, the 2013 declaration, again. That was a good effort, and now we are seeing that also with the current government, there's a lot of effort. However, this is a big but that comes in. From our experience, is that children with disabilities kept on falling through the cracks somehow. Despite all these efforts, children with disabilities somehow kept on lagging behind. Due to many reasons. Perhaps these were discussed yesterday or some will be discussed today. But part of what we saw, at least from our experience where we are implementing projects, is the bit of poverty, where if parents who have children with disabilities and also some children without disabilities, if they are made to take them to, say, special schools, then the opportunity cost becomes a bit too high. They'd rather not take them most of the time. So that is one of the reasons. I believe there are many others. So for us, there's a good effort, but unfortunately, children with disabilities were not reached as much. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got colleagues from. Okay.
Yes. I want to say that efforts that Kenya Side for the Blind and other partners joined the government to identify learners with disabilities. And of course, at this time from 2003, you'll find that only those who are identified were being supported by the government, because the government said, give us the statistics and we shall fund. We shall give an extra fund for learners with disabilities. So there are only those who are identified, but many who are not identified did not receive support. That is the challenge.
From, that is which organization?
It is APDK. Yeah, I want to thank you all and even thank the government for issues about inclusive education, because for us as APDK, we had started the community-based rehabilitation in the year 2000, and we had challenges because the area that we were working in, it was slum set-up areas, and most of the learners were not going to school, because I remember at one point, there is a learner we had taken to Joytown, and when he came back to the community, he was not able to interact well with the community, because the facilities that were in the community are not the facilities that this learner was getting in school. And this is the time that it raised an issue with us that now we need to rethink again and incorporate the schools that were within the community on issues about inclusive education. And we started creating awareness in those schools to the teachers, to the learners, and to the BOM and even the parents, that the learner can benefit well in the schools nearby. It was not easy. We have gotten support from the government. For those learners who came in, I agree with Mr. Buhala that the learners who came out and got to the schools were able to be supported, were identified and were supported by the government, and some of them up to this level have done their fourth form. A few have joined colleges, but challenges have been there that the numbers have been overwhelming. The teachers were taking in the learners, but the numbers have been overwhelming. You find that a learner with special needs, the teachers at times are not able to handle, because like a school is having 100 learners. So that time that this teacher would want to really support the learner with special needs is limited. And you'd find, yes, they're coming in, but they would lag behind because of the numbers that you're having. And most even of the teachers will tell you, yes, you're telling us to take in the learners, but we do not have the personnel, the staffing is a little bit challenging for us. So these are issues that maybe we need to look into it. Yes, we appreciate, it's a step we have started, but the numbers are overwhelming. The teachers are not able to really take care of the big numbers that are there, and our learners would drag behind. Not that the teachers are refusing, but the numbers and the children really need a lot of support. And even when you look at the issues about the teacher aides, when it comes to the PH learners, they really need support on the teacher aides, and at times they don't get in because who is going to take care of these caregivers who are going to take care of these learners when they're in class? So the challenges are there, but I believe it's a step. We appreciate that as we move forward, something positive is going to come out of it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's move on. Because I wish, yeah, I really had said I'll give to Kenneth to talk, but now I'm pressed by time. I've got a meeting running that is waiting for me. But, okay. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Just shortly, talking about what? I want to talk more about the deaf community here. Okay, you are talking about EFA that started in 2003. But most of the deaf people were not able maybe to join. Some parents were having challenges with school fees, but when they saw that we had free education, mostly from the community, they were wondering whether they can also be accepted in these regular schools, so that they can also get trained just as the other children. So this was the only challenge that they were having. So they did not know whether they can be accepted. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Let's move on. Study. I think we are still okay with EFA. Let's move on with the data. The right to education for persons with disabilities. This was our flagship project in Dakar towards inclusion. You see, now they brought it in because they realized that at the Sub-Saharan Conference there was an issue. So they were now able to include it in Dakar and like in Jontier. So I think that one is quite okay. Which includes segregated schools, an issue which receives little attention in Japan and in. So let's move on. I just brought us down to Kenya. 2001, the Children's Act. It raised the issue of special needs and education. Every person has the right to education. A learner will not be denied access to education on the basis of what? of perceived HIV status, in particular access to education with those living with HIV, orphan and vulnerable children. This one was raised in the Education Act. Let's move on. The Persons with Disabilities Act of 2003. No person or learning institution shall deny admission to a person with a disability. It was very clear in 2003. Many years after the international conferences, to any course of study by reason only of such disability, if the person has the ability to acquire substantial learning in that course. If you look at this thing, and you look at our admission to courses, we really have a challenge. Although this is what is said, but still a lot of denial takes place within institutions. Yes, a lot of persons deny children with special needs and disabilities admission, but behind the scenes, it doesn't come out clear. This one is expressed in law, but it doesn't really happen as such. Let's move on. The CRPD 2008. I have brought the CRPD after our statutes because it came out Article 24 on education. State parties recognize the right of persons with disabilities to education with a view to realizing this right without discrimination and on the basis of equal opportunity. Do we have equal opportunity in this country? Do we have equal opportunity? We think so. Yeah, we try. You have got any situations where you think, yes, we are trying? Or is it because we write in the newspapers, persons with disabilities can also apply? Yeah? So we are trying. Yeah. And we actualize the 5%? No. Not really. Yeah, so we are still trying. That's what we are saying. State parties shall ensure an inclusive education system at all levels and lifelong learning. State parties shall ensure an inclusive education. So what do you think of that? Are we ensuring? Are we ensuring an inclusive education?
We are trying, but we are not there.
We are trying, but we are not there.
Yes.
Yes. Even in our own institution here, we are trying. That is the statement. We are trying. We are not yet there. Yes. We are trying. Let's move on. Persons with disabilities receive their support required within the general education system to facilitate their effective education. Even that one here, we are still trying. In Kise, I can tell you that. And Daktari is here. She has taught for many years. We are still trying. Yeah, my colleagues, Arika is here. We are still trying. You can go to class and you don't provide even the right modes. You go to meetings, you don't provide the right modes. And students really complain. Yeah. Effective individualized support measures are provided in environments that maximize academic and social development. This one now has been brought out by a current government document called the Basic Education Framework. Now it has actualized. I wish Madam Kaku from the ministry is here, who presented on the policy yesterday. If you go to the policy, the only thing about individualized support that is there, and I've read the policy, I can tell you word by word. The only thing that is there in our policy is definition of individualized support. It doesn't go beyond that. The only thing they've done is to define it. In case she comes around, tell her Mr. Sanoy said that. So that then we can have a discussion with her. So this one is required. But I'm happy that the Basic Education Framework of 2017 has now brought it out. It has said individualized education according to the needs of the learners. Expressly done. Let's move on. The Basic Education Act 2013, which part is that one? Part 6. special needs education. Provide for the learning and progression of children with special needs through the education program, that system. And part 2, prescribe guidelines for the promotion of education for children with special needs. Fine, like what Kaku was doing there. Those ones were guidelines, which I think is important, so it is still clear. Let's move on. Establish mechanisms to ensure that every special school or educational institution, you see they are talking of special schools. They are not talking of inclusive. Are you aware of that? Yes. So be careful. Establish mechanisms to ensure that every special school or educational institution offering special needs education has appropriate personnel, infrastructure, learning materials, and equipment. It doesn't talk about inclusion. So this, we are still in Jomtien.
I think by that year,
Yeah.
we had not still started advocating so much for inclusive education. We were still concentrating on
Special needs education. In what? In Kenya.
Yes.
Yes. But remember, when was Salamanca? Very many years ago. But again, when did we, as Kenya Institute of Special Education, start teaching teachers on inclusive education, Daktari?
Around the year, we started the conversation around the year 2000, and then by
Correct.
2002, 2005, we had graduated.
Yes. By 2000, we were already implementing a teacher training program on inclusive education. But in 13 years after, this is what the Basic Education Act is talking about, special schools and everything. Let's move on. Sustainable Development Goals. I didn't do the Millennium Development. Goal 4, education quality. What do they say? They say ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. It's very express. Which earlier document is nearing SDGs? Can you tell me? Which earlier document is nearing SDGs? Salamanca. Salamanca. Yes. It nears ADG. It mirrors ADG. Let's move on. So these ones are basically what I have here are mainly the very specific things about what SDG is saying on inclusion. Education facilities and learning environment. Move to target 4B. This one is talking about facilities and learning environment. Mr. Rika, move to 4B, or is it Felix? Scholarships, move. I don't want to read, I want you to read. It talks about teachers. Because I'm a teacher, let's read this. Increase the supply of qualified teachers trained in inclusive education pedagogy. What is inclusive education pedagogy? Many of you here are teachers. Solomon, were you once a teacher?
Yeah, I'm a teacher.
Yes. What is inclusive education pedagogy?
These are ways, the strategies of delivering.
Yes.
The content to
Yes.
learners with disabilities.
Now I'll send you to go and look at those things. Yeah. Which is inclusive education pedagogy? Let's move on. Primary and secondary education. Support ministries of education in developing accessible and inclusive curricula. We hope the curricula we are now developing is accessible and inclusive, and assessments to monitor all learners, including those with disabilities. So I think this one, the partners have got a very big role to play, because they really come out in specific areas of special needs and disability. Let's move on. So this one moves all the way up to 4.7. I will leave that one for you to read. It's very, very explicit, and it's quite also clear in the documents. I wish to stop there so that I run to the next meeting. I wish the director Iesd had come here to listen to these stories, but welcome, Madam Director. Yeah, and we are just finished.
Thank you, Mr. Sanoy. Do you think he has taken us so fast because he's running to another meeting? If I gave this mic to pass round so that we can talk about the policies that he's talked about, will we be able to reflect on them? Who do I start with? Wafula. Wafula, what do you have to say about the policies that are talking about inclusive education? What do you have to say about them? Of course, everyone here has heard about them and everything. Can we now give it a different face?
I don't know if I have to comment or not a plan or to say whether. But okay, let me say what I have learned.
Yes.
Yeah, I think he has talked about pedagogy in inclusive settings. And I think there was a word there, I don't know if I got it right, something to do with the curriculum. And it disturbed me from yesterday that when you look at the curriculum in inclusive schools, it may be quite challenging to certain levels of learners. But then we also look at our role as teachers. I think for us, like Iesd, we have done quite a good job in preparing teachers for inclusive education. How about those ones at tertiary levels, like now, or even at high school, secondary schools, the teacher training? How many universities are preparing teachers for inclusive education out there for our part?
Thank you very much for raising that concern. Anyone who wants to express themselves about what you've learned in relation to the policies? If you don't choose yourself, I choose you. We must talk about what we've learned about the policies, because all the time we are talking about inclusive education. What we say that one of the challenges for implementing inclusive education are either lack of policies, inconsistent policies, or policies that are there but are not articulating inclusive education the way they are supposed to. Yes, Madam Ronaldo.
Thank you very much, Dr. For me, I think one of the biggest concerns, first and foremost, many thanks to Mr. Sonoya in absentia. It's good to understand the legal framework, and also good to know that, especially in SDGs, issues of inclusive education are sort of fully covered. But as practitioners, and I think to support my friend from APDK, one of the biggest challenges we are facing is the issue of teachers. We are happy that I think there's an effort to train teachers in inclusive education, but also sometimes you find that the acceptance in the schools, how do we deal with that, the attitude, and also the bit of support for learners who might need support in the inclusive setup. That is a big challenge. There's also the bit of parents feeling a bit uncomfortable sometimes to let their children, especially those with learning disabilities, go to the inclusive setup, especially if they feel that the child might not be safe, maybe a bit of bullying, a bit of such things. So all those are things that I think we need to ensure we work on to make sure, so as to make inclusive education a reality.
Thank you, Madam Renalda. If you realize what she has talked about, what we learned yesterday about the challenges that are facing inclusive education, isn't it? Then, if still we are having those challenges and we are talking about having the legal framework, what are we going to do? That is a question that I'm just asking and wondering. We don't have to answer it. But then, like the latest policy on disability has talked about inclusive education. Is it sufficient? Because it was launched last year. Is there anything happening? Anyone who can elaborate something on what you've learned about the policies? You don't have to answer the questions I'm asking. I'm just wondering. Zachary, I can see your hand up. Here you go.
Thank you, Alon. Listening to the presentation by Sanoy, thanks in absentia, I've actually been disturbed by a fact that in spite of the fact that inclusive education was discussed in length in the Salamanca conference, and the fact that KISE as an institution started practicing it with its first graduates in 2005, and yet in 2013 we are having one or two policies that are, or even acts that are produced with, less than that. To me, it's a great worry. Yesterday, Madam Kaku posted a question, I think, to all of us, trying to figure out who amongst us that participated in the committee. She called it technical committee that participated in the sector policy for learners and trainers with disabilities. And apparently she almost lacked anybody amongst us who participated in it. So I think it's a great concern, and that tunafaa tuwe macho. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Zachary, on that. I would like to probably put a little correction on that. I said that in Kenya Institute of Special Education, we started the conversation about inclusive education in the year 2000. You realize there's no way you can start implementing a curriculum which is not yet approved. So in the year 2000, we started a conversation about the new areas of specialization. And one of the new areas was inclusive education, because previously we were only, remember that time, the people who were even here in KISE training teachers or talking about special needs education in Kenya were all trained from, not from Kenya, they were all trained outside the country. And therefore, the ones who were coming in new, who had been trained in the new areas, who had heard about inclusive education, then started talking about it, and then that is how we moved. Let's appreciate the fact that we are where we are, and that is why we are here having this conversation, so that we can raise the concerns and we can see, we can take a step further. And thanks to call that it has come now, that the question that Mr. Wafula is asking, what we are talking about basic education in secondary school, is inclusive education happening? Call is helping us. Remember yesterday you learned about the communities and how KISE, the ministry, TSC are working together with some 20 secondary schools to take inclusive education conversation to and practice to the secondary schools. And on that note, yesterday we had a group activity, and we were divided into 3 groups, and people went to their groups to do the discussions. It is the time now I'm requesting that can the presenters do the presentation. I don't know, as a teacher, I usually mix my groups. I don't have to start with group 1. I will start with group 2. Where are you, group 2?
Just for correction, though.
Yes.
Some organizations that deal individual work.
Yeah, we didn't have groups.
It's only KISE that had a group.
We didn't have groups.
Okay. At least, okay, how do you want me to call those groups? How do you want me to name them? Organizations. So which organization that you can present? I'm requesting you kindly to stay here.
And that we have remained with what my grandmother brought me up with. They call it Githeri in my mother tongue. I want to believe it is called Nyoyo in another mother tongue, and you can find it in your mother tongue. Arika, what do you call it in Kings? You still call it Nyoyo. And when you make the traditional Nyoyo, you don't just use a particular bean. You go to the farm, whether the bean is white, red, what, we mix all of them with dry maize. Senior Felix? Yeah. And we eat it. Others, we eat it with the tea, others we eat it with the mashed and all those kind of things. Matapula, that is what Arika has called it. We still have to ask ourselves, yes, this is what was said in Salamanca. Is that what is trending in Kenya? The answer is yes and no. Maybe we have not found our footing. Maybe we have not settled down. We are still trying to look for where we belong. And that is why personally I'm very excited when we are having this kind of debates. Let's move on. We had a special needs education framework of 2009. This framework was not very clear on inclusive education. It wasn't very clear. But one of the things that I appreciate the government of Kenya and the Ministry of Education, therefore, is that this was a first attempt that gave stakeholders a working platform in addressing education for children with disabilities. At least it was a starting point. It doesn't matter. It was a shelter for the children. But it had one weakness, that it never had guidelines. Kaku, are the guidelines still cooking? Ama hivi imesahaulika?
No, it was reviewed.
It was reviewed.
It was reviewed last year, and it has guidelines.
No, that is the other policy. I'm coming to it. I'm saying the special needs framework, the guidelines never cooked.
Yeah.
Yeah, so somehow that home linked. Maybe it was a single orphan. Maybe. But there was a child called SME framework of 2009. And I want to believe that many non-governmental organizations, CBOs and the others, leveraged their programs on this particular framework. Am I right, Madam Renada?
Sure.
Yes. So we're not saying it was lost. We're not saying it was not useful. It was. It gave us something that we could use. Please move on. We have the National Special Needs Education Survey that was done by BSO Gitole in 2014. This special needs survey, it showed us that we have 13.5% of our children with disabilities, but the issue is most of them were out of school. Most of them were out of school. There was the issue of resources and structures in school were not adequate and not relevant to learners. The ratio of special needs educators to learners with disability was below the threshold. Madam Lillian, this is what I was clearing to say, but I like that you owned up to it. We still have the issue of educators. And I think one thing that we have carried with ourselves, and which the NGO as stakeholders have really played a role in, is providing support to the educators. Not 100% good, but the support has been there. We shall see this from the survey that was done by KISA in 2018. The study of 2014 established that favorable government policies, support from CBOs and NGOs, availability of assistive devices and educational institutions for children with disability and special needs needs to be there. But there was need to promote SNE teachers' attendance of school by CWDs. There was need to promote the attendance of school by not just the teachers. I think they didn't look so much at teacher absenteeism, but the absenteeism or the lack of children with disabilities. And what I find to be a big gap is where we have a primary school, a secondary school attached or next to, in proximity to a special school, but there was no transition to that particular school. Without naming a school, there's a school that came to KISA at one time, a secondary school, and they said, oh, we have a special school around us. Then we asked, is it a school for PH? You know the way KISA likes shortcuts. A school for VI or HI? And the principal said, I really don't know. I'll check when I go back. It really scared me because those are children. And it being a primary school most likely was a mixed school. Am I right? But the secondary, even if it was one gender, it meant that it had room for one child to do what? To transit to that school. But this is a school that neighbors a special school that doesn't know what the special school does. They don't even know that that is their catchment area and they needed to do something. I actually asked myself, why did CBC come 10 years ago? Because within CBC we have community work. Isn't that so? Maybe the secondary school would go for community work in the primary school. But why am I raising this? Because when we talk about the trend of inclusive education in Kenya, in some segments of this society, it still remains in the books. It still remains in the academia world. It is not there in practice. And I will not say it is in the rural areas. I will not say it is in the urban areas. Because schools as close to the house on the hill. We have the nearest school to the house on the hill is Upper Hill Secondary School. Am I right? Mm-hmm. Schools in Nairobi that are within radius of TSC and ministry, 12 kilometers, still have issues practicing inclusive education. Bukala. The child who was rejected after qualifying to join a national school, but was rejected. Wasn't the child rejected in Nairobi? The child was rejected in Nairobi. But this is a child with special needs that had qualified to join a national school. As children sit for exams, what do they wish for? They wish to go to national schools. And if not national schools, they wish to go to that good school. So this child qualified. Up to today, I still ask myself a lot of questions. What did the parent tell the child? Why was the child rejected? Because this child came from a regular primary school. So they were wondering, my disability has just grown up with me. So as we talk about trends in inclusive education in Kenya, I'm still saying it could still be remaining within our programs in the CBO world, in the NGO world. And that is why I needed this to be more of a discussion than a presentation. Let's move on. We have the National Survey on Children with Disabilities and Special Needs in Education, done by KISE in 2018. This particular survey established that there is a preference rate of 11.4% of children in Kenya between the age of 3 and 21. When we took 3, they were just 1 year to get into school. And with these 3, Bwana Director, I think we still have a challenge to get the Council of Governors to work with us. Because then ECD is part of education. And if the children do not start school at that point, then we continue delaying their entry into school. And if inclusive education does not take root in ECDE, then we still have a very big problem. We will have overage children. And sometimes I hear NEC has issues with overage and underage. That is a discussion we shall have with NEC, especially needs educators, because I'm still asking myself, when my child is gifted and talented and wants to do class 8, my brother from NEC, what will you do to this child? This child is 12 years, this child is 10 years, gifted and talented, and they want to be registered. Actually, this year, I have a colleague here whose son said, "Mimi nataka kufanya class 8." And this is a child who says, kama sitafanya class 8, na mimi sitasoma class. Ako class 7 this year, but said nataka kufanya class 8. Asipokubalishwa kufanya class 8, then amesema next year hatasoma. Ataka nyumbani agoje mtihani. So those are the kind of discussions we need to have. But we are saying between the age of 3 and 21 in 2017, because data was collected in 2017, we have 11.4%. Meaning this total number of children was about 4 million. It was coming to about 4 million. These are children that are supposed to be within our education system. When you look at these children, they cannot be taken to special schools. They cannot be taken to special schools. Since they cannot be taken to special schools, how ready are the rest of our schools to take in these children? How ready are they? And I will say the practice of inclusive education is not just about resources. Actually, when we carried out the survey and we have followed it up with another one and another one, our greatest issue with this trend of inclusive education is attitude. You've got to change yourself before you change the world. That's a fact. How ready are the schools for this child? Because when a mother has nothing to offer the children, and some of you will relate with what I'm going to say, our grandmothers or our mothers, depending on where and when you grew up, they would put the pot on the fire and fill it with water. And they keep putting firewood into it. And the hope that there is food cooking well kept you going. And you never collapsed. It is the sleep that would make you fall off the seat and you end up going to sleep. Am I right, Arika? In the hope of tomorrow you will wake up and the food will be ready, you will eat. It is called attitude. The mother never showed weakness in front of the children. She kept the children on a positive lane. Are we together? And in the morning before the children woke up, she woke up very early to go to the neighbor to look for something to eat. I go back to inclusive education. It's about our attitude. It's about we can do something about this situation. If I may just look at some of the work Dr. Cheshire are doing, like making ramps just using matope. I mean, matope is not bought, it is there, it is a free resource from God. Renata, am I saying things that you do? You get the parents and they come together and they make the ramp. Unasindiria tu, you compact. Are we together? and we make that classroom accessible to that child. About adjusting windows, Madam Kaku, so that the windows are not opening halfway and children with low vision keep being knocked. You now open the hinges and get the fundi to make sure that when the window opens, you know our traditional windows at school, zile za mbao, you make sure that it opens totally and you hook it with a wire ile umekota huko nje. Ama ile kamba ya kufungia kuku. Are we together? You just make sure that it lies right on that. So it is about attitude. I hear us talking about resources. It is true, resources are an issue. But some of these resources are available within our environment, and we can use that. If I look at age mates in this room, I used to see boys playing football then. And I never saw a parent buy a football ball, not even for the tournament. But a director, your first football ball, was it like this one?
No.
Was it like this one?
No.
It was made up of what?
Rads, tight, completely tight.
Makaratasi mingi imeokotwa. Did anybody make it for you?
No. We made it ourselves.
You did it yourselves. And it was about attitude. That what you skipping rope. Madam Director, did anybody buy you a skipping rope? Tulikuwa tunaenda tunatafuta saiso. Unagwara na panga, mnashona, Madam Elizabeth, is that sounding familiar?
We even use the plants, you know those crawling plants.
Yes.
That's the tough one. Sisal is fun.
Somebody wore a necklace, somebody wore an earring. Was it ever bought? Mtengeneza na mahindi. That is Frida for you. Frida have been thinking that you are part of the double orphan, single orphan category that were bought things. So I'm simply taking us back to history. That was trending then. And it was about attitude that children never got tired. You know, you would be sent to the river, after the river you would be sent for another thing, but you still had time to make those things. It was about attitude. But today, we have issues. Teachers don't want to make educational resources, they want them bought by the school. Isn't that so? Even us as NGOs and CBOs, sometimes we just look for resources that we can buy and take to the school. Have we ever thought we could invest time in school and spend time with the parents and address the real issues for inclusive education where we work together with the parents and stretch that coin? And in the process of stretching that coin, change the attitude of the parents towards accommodating this other child. Are we together? This study by Kise said that there was no specific policy in place for implementation of inclusive education in Kenya. And consequently, within its recommendation, it recommended to the Ministry of Education to have a policy. We are extremely grateful that the ministry took up this so fast. I wondered whether they were peeping into our recommendations. Before the survey was released, there was already something in the cooking. This particular survey of 2018 has recommendations for everybody. So what I would say is, before you leave this place, ensure that you get a copy of that survey. See what recommendations were put in place for you. We have recommendations right from NEC. Mr. Moy is the most favorite of the recommendations from NEC, where the children were seeking to be accommodated. Where this blanket statement of 30 minutes extra for everybody, it is not one size fits all. There was a recommendation for a non-governmental organization. If you look at that survey, you may pass it. If you look at that survey, most of the support from the non-governmental organization was on assistive devices. But there was also something that we noted when we went out to collect data, that inclusive education is not just about children with physical disabilities, but there was a lot of support for children with physical disability. Could we take a leap of faith and get into the other disabilities so that we are able to support all children so that they can be in school? Am I talking to anyone? And where you don't, you feel that you have challenges, please talk to their neighbor, talk to Kise and the other person and the other person, and let us grow together. So we even had recommendations for parents, because even as we talk to you, you carry with yourself offices, but you also remain a parent. Even if you don't have your own child, you're parenting that other child. Because this is Africa. I said we customize everything according to ourselves. I am a parent of very many other children. So we had recommendations for parents. And one of the recommendations we had for parents is getting more engaged in their children's education. And I'm so happy that CBC then is promoting that kind of parents' participation in their children's education. Move on. The sector policy for learners and trainees with disabilities in Kenya, it promotes inclusive practices. It gives learners and trainees priority. These learners with disabilities and trainees with disability, it gives them priority. It has the Ubuntu approach. It has the Ubuntu approach. And what I would say is, if you have never read the policy, please read the policy. And as you read the policy, read the guidelines. What is this Ubuntu philosophy in it? I know Ubuntu says, I am because we are. It is a high time we stop exclusion. It's a high time we stop discrimination. The trend is, at the end of the day, whether a child has a special need or has a disability, they'll grow up and join the rest of society. If we continue putting children in compacts, they will outgrow those compacts boxes. So where will they go to? And this takes me to, when we did a study on Tibet, as we were collecting data, we met a student who said, I have enough special certificates. Went to a special primary school, went to a special secondary school, now I want to go to a regular college. This was a student who is blind, went to a technical training college and said, I want to come to this college. And when we tried to understand, why do you want to come to this college? And the college was saying, no, we don't have place for you. He said, I am tired of this word special. So the child says, it's not me who is special. Actually, it is you people who are special. I am part and parcel of society. So what is the trend? The trend is, at the end of the day, we are a society. We are human. We are equalized. And I want to believe that is where we are as Kenyans, as far as inclusive education is concerned. And that is why we are even having reverse integration. Because everybody needs to be included in this society. And that is where we are. And that is why I'm still appealing for the last time. Please, if you have not read the sector policy, read it. I know you were taken through yesterday, but read it and read the guidelines. So we're saying there is need to bring action into that policy so that it becomes alive. If we say it's a good policy, done by Kenyans, for Kenyans, then we have to give it life. And the only people who can give it life in a proper way are the stakeholders. And I know that is the strength of the NGO world. I'm almost finishing. I want us to trace children and trainees with disability. Unfortunately, even as I stand here, some of these children and trainees are still at home. Don't we agree on that? They're still at home. The question is, if we are talking about inclusiveness, why are they not included? Is it that the school in the neighborhood cannot accommodate them? Who cannot accommodate them in that school? Is it the administrator? Is it the teacher? Is it the policy holders at the top, at TSC and at the ministry? Who is the problem? Is it the chief? Because according to what I know, we still have a lot of mechanism of ensuring that children are in school. So why are they at home? And this is the mission I send you out for. As the NGO world, if we have to practice inclusive education, then we have to live in the SDG spirit. Leave no one behind. Most of these children with disability and trainees with disability are in regular schools, but they continue to experience exclusion. They are present in class. It begins, it ends there. We found them in Tibet institutions. We found them in national polytechnics. But what was interesting, even in leadership in those institutions, they were not represented. So are they inclusive? Not really. So NGO world is very good at advocacy. Can we take it a notch higher? So that we are not just talking to primary. Let's take it to secondary. As they make the clubs, the different clubs and so on, can we make sure that they are inclusive? I know we have done inclusion for women in this country in a very good way, very empowered women. Can we now go back and pick children and trainees with disability and ensure that inclusive education is driven by them, for them? Some are in special institutions, but again, they're not benefiting from these special institutions. I have in mind children with mental disabilities who just go to school and after that they go back home. that joins me with the next point. A number, not that one. I want to go to functional assessment. Why are these children not gaining from school? They were assessed the first time. They were placed in school. Are we together? For inclusive education to work, we have to appreciate that assessment is a continuous thing. Betty Chesire, you have Lydia assessed. Once I am assessed, I am placed in school A. You need to agree at what intervals I should go for reassessment. Because we have to reassess the children if they went to a special school so that they could gain some certain milestones, maybe activities of daily living. I need to be reassessed so that now I can join mainstream school. If I was assessed and placed in mainstream school, I need to be still reassessed so that my IEP can be readjusted. Mr. Moyo, am I talking?
Yeah, you are.
So we do not do a one-time assessment. My colleagues from NGO, and I know we support assessment. But can we make sure that it is programmed in such a way that there is assessment and reassessment? Wanabuhala, every 2 years I go for reassessment for my eyes. And sometimes they will change my lens, at times they will not change my lens. Isn't that true? So for functional educational assessment, we are saying it is a tool for inclusive education. If it has to work for inclusive education, then we have to have assessment and reassessment. And now in the era of CBC, we need assessment and reassessment more than before. Madam Trufena, is that true? Yeah, we need to know where Trufena is and what now we need to for Trufena next. Madam Kapu, I know you are the mother of SNE. Please carry that as your next message. We are saying a number of CWDs are accessing higher education, but there is very poor representation. In the study we did in the one that was launched in 2018, university had a reflection of only 4%. In the study we did for Tibet, we went to special Tibet and regular Tibet, but there's nowhere where it was above 18%. Even in special needs Tibet, the graduates per year exiting that they have finished a certain course, not more than 10. Even when I talk about Karen Technical Institute for the Deaf, they are not more than 10. Madam Kapu, we are saying poor representation. If we want them to exit, can we also help them to transit so that then they exit meaningfully? And that is why some are stuck in those schools, because our inclusive education practices are not 100% in the trend of what we want as a country, not the trend of the world of what we want as a country. Education that is empowering so that you can tap into your full potential and so that you can become a meaningful citizen of this country. Most of these children with disability, and I address myself to National Council, are not registered. We were in the field just a few weeks ago. I have a bunch of 100 parents in one sub-county in Kiambu, and out of 100 parents, only 5 children are registered. I go to another place, only 10 are registered. So can we then mobilize ourselves? And when we go for outreach, whether it is KISA, whether it is who, can we also make sure that these children are registered? Why is the registration important? If they have to be included, they have to be counted so that they are planned for. So National Council, I'm sure you're in the house, can we have a mobilization time so that we have these children registered? Just like the Ministry of Education said, can you have a unique identifier? Can you go out of your way to have these children registered? Once they are registered, you'll even be able to track them transiting from this level to the next level. And it will be very easy for the rest of us to even prepare the rest of the world where they will be received in the next secondary school. Those trained are not. My question is why, but I heard that you are already going to gather CVs using an online platform. But I'm also asking myself, is there a gap in the education system? So I hear we prepare children and trainees with disability for entrepreneurship. This is Kenya in the 21st century. How many of you left college and the first thing you did was business? Mirembe? Can somebody leave school and the first thing you do is business? Everybody needs to be employed to at least first of all get money and know you're paid one day, but that money is supposed to take you 30 days. So for you to know how to keep a ledger, to do bookkeeping and all that, you need some level of employment. You don't have to be employed by government. You can even be employed by Lydia, who pays you mara moja kwa wiki, but that money is supposed to take you the whole week. So is there a gap in the education that we provide for learners and trainees with disability? Maybe that is why we are not being inclusive. Maybe that is a trend we need to look into and ask ourselves, what courses are we training in? Am I in the last? So, what are you taking home as a stakeholder? And what is your role in the community? We are saying we need to move from advocacy into support. And when we move into support, I would like TSC to think in terms of classroom support for the teacher. We really need teacher aides if inclusive education has to work. I think this models that. It is good that we are not perfect, but we can just look at what is being modeled and understand why teachers need teacher aid if inclusive education has to work. We're also saying we need to rework inclusive education practice to provide assistance and other professionals in the institutions. Those teachers, I think Trufena is more versed with this and Wafula. Schools for children with physical disabilities and schools for children with autism, I know the others will talk, they need therapists, seriously. Are we providing for that? We're not saying that TSC to employ therapists, but get into an MOU with Ministry of Health. Colleagues, can you clap for that? You know, as TSC gets into understanding with Nat and the others, can we look at the professional MOUs and get into a handshake with the Ministry of Health? So that those graduates who are coming from KMTC, can they go to our schools? They can even do internship in those schools. Members, what do you think? Yes. Yeah, so we need to have that kind of an understanding. Madam Lillian, again, an assignment for you. You're my boss, but we want to make inclusive education work in this country. We are saying we need to support schools and institutions to make them child-friendly. And I'm saying not just infrastructure. Can we start with attitude alone first? Can we start with attitude? Where we have discussions and build one another. And we need to make IEP, individualized education program, and individualized behavior management program, part and parcel of our education program. I have brought in behavior strongly because if we have to practice inclusive education, especially in secondary school, then the behavior management program becomes very critical. Dr. Ongera, I believe you'll agree with me in this. Because at adolescent, we have a lot of issues with self-awareness and self-image. And this is where I can be bullied and drop out of school because my disability is seen to define me in secondary school. Am I talking to anyone? Yeah. So we not only sell IEP, but we also need to sell individualized behavior management programs, where we even have a whole school behavior management program. How do we manage ourselves so that everybody feels comfortable? And finally, involve parents in programs so that parents are not only called to school to be told about how the child performed in terms of grades. Can we talk more? And can we even call a meeting and tell parents we are working towards having children with disability, Madam Kaku, join this school of ours so that your own child is sensitized to become part and parcel of a community where there are persons with disability. Let me tell you, parents seated in a forum like this one will not say they don't want a child with disability. But sometimes when we bring in a child with a disability, the parents themselves reject the child through their children. So we need to have the support of the parents so that the child is accepted and appreciated. When we had a conference in 2016, one of the strongest messages I carried from that conference is when the children said the adults are the problem. Dr. Ongera, you remember that one? Yes. They said the adults are the problem. When we go to the field, as we look at our colleague, kama hizi kimbia na mpira namna hii, tunamfanya linesman. Si ana participate in playing football. They said it is the adults who bring the attitude issues. So, what are our trends in inclusive education? We are yet to find our real footing. And that is why we are still practicing segregated special schools, integrated programs, and something we are calling mainstream inclusive education. But I think if we work together, if we journey together and address a few of those gaps that are raised, then we shall be able to practice real inclusive education, especially in the era of CBC, where we look at the child's potential, but not what the children have performed, and we put Lydia in one of those ranges. Thank you.
Wow. I think we need to give a clap that is equivalent to the trench coat that she's wearing. Let us give her some colors. I think she loves colors, especially blue and green. So yellow also. All right. So let us give And then probably we give her my yellow as we forward to her. Thank you very much, Lydia. That was a powerful presentation. I think she has also connected very well with yesterday's presentation and today's presentation by Mr. Sanoy. Remember she mentioned something with to do with the Salamanca, the name that give her mysteries. So that was addressed also by Mr. Sanoy earlier today when he was talking about the frameworks. She also connected so much with what Madam Kapu presented yesterday about universal design for learning as well as the sector policy. So we are going inclusive, and our role today as organizations supporting inclusive education, we need to add now to top up what we do and give it a blend of inclusive education. So I'll welcome comments and remarks from the floor for Lydia's presentation. So please let
Yes, I want to say that I think when you look at inclusive education, it should be like the way we had Uduma Nama. There was serious mobilization. And you see, I'm seeing that we need to expand the involvement of inclusive education because it's part and parcel of our human existence. Because we never choose to have children with disabilities, we never choose to have relatives with disabilities, we never choose to be persons with disabilities. I think provincial or internal, we call it internal ministry, should get more involved in what we are saying. It is not an issue of only Ministry of Education. I think Madam Kaku, you will agree with me. Because we need to involve everybody. We need KISE to know that public, or the public opinion leaders out there, they need to have some workshops here. We need to have some chiefs. In fact, not some, but all chiefs in this country. And we need to connect with the Ministry of Devolution. COG, when you go to COG, they tell you, we don't have facilitation, but if you go to Ministry of Devolution, they can connect you to all the counties. That is one area that I've found. So I want to look at the chiefs, because I'm remembering when integration, we wanted children to be integrated. We involved opinion leaders. We involved chiefs. We had their workshops. And I'm telling you, it was wonderful. Heads, they are in schools for a while. They retire, they go. But you see, we want to remember, every area has an opinion leader. Has he understood what we are talking about, inclusive education? I think we should not close. Let us open the table, expand it, and involve more people so that learners with the disabilities can be part and parcel. I'm happy the way you have said about the National Council. We need the systems of registering persons with disability to be at least flexible. What can we do? Because the issue is that they have to appear before a medical board. After that, a report. Then after that, now a certificate. That's the ID. There is need to also be flexible. National Council should be thinking of revising the system of issuing identification cards.
Especially to children.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Solomon, for that addition. I think it was more of a comment, but improving inclusive education as well. Madam Renalda.
Thank you very much. Also appreciating Madam Lydia for that wonderful presentation. Three key points. One, regarding the way forward, I would say those of us working in the field should do both advocacy and support. I think they are both important. And because it's through advocacy that we get policy implementation, and we are very happy. I think the trend, if I may add a trend here, is most NGOs are now trying to work very closely with the government, not bashing the government, you're not doing this, you're not doing this, but just trying to see what we can do together. The second point is almost what has just been said about the registration. Honestly, from our experience, that's very difficult. You know, when families go to places trying to get their children registered and it becomes difficult, then some give up because of the setting, their own setting. So could that be decentralized? I mean, when we're talking of mass registration, can it even be done in the school centers? Can National Council maybe just go to the schools, you know, with everybody who's required, the Minister of Health, whoever, do the registration there so that it is very clear right from the word go.